Well, let's get more on the Democratic reaction. Let's cross over to speak to Christian Hanley, a consultant to Democratic candidates and analysts. It's great to have you on the program, Christian. Tell us
Thank you for having me.
about Kamala Harris. Our international affairs editor, Ketavan Gorjastani, just mentioned that quite a few people are joining Biden and getting behind her. How do other Democrats feel about her?
Well, I think there are some concerns about her popularity, her name ID in some of the key swing states. That was sort of the concern going back a couple of weeks now. But going back even farther in this conversation, thinking about what Fraser had just said, I mean, that analysis was spot on. The Trump campaign really right now is putting on a brave face, but I think they are quite scared. Kamala Harris is, as he already said, a prosecutor from California who, excuse me, in the previous election, in her own primary race, that counted against her for a lot of progressives, that history of being a prosecutor. But in this instance now, she is the ideal person to be prosecuting this case against Donald Trump, who, let's not forget, he was the former president who stacked the Supreme Court and pushed it to the hard right, who is responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court precedent that made abortion access legal across the country. And she's the one who's going to be able to carry that case against Donald Trump, who right now can no longer have this same tired narrative about his opponent being old and feeble and not having their wits about them. I mean, Donald Trump, let's not forget too, is showing signs of serious cognitive decline, and that's not just my own personal opinion. We can actually check tape and check. This is someone who in New York City has a track record in the media going back at least to the 80s, if not the 70s, and we can see just how much he really has fallen in terms of his own abilities. And so to have someone who is half his age, who is brilliant, who's a lawyer and former prosecutor, taking the case to the American people against Donald Trump, I think really is going to have that campaign on its heels.
And can you lay out for us what the next few days will look like now for the Democrats?
I mean, frankly, I'm not sure anybody can completely do that. This really is something that is brand new. This has not happened in my lifetime, certainly. And so, I mean, some of the logistical matters that are going to happen is that Democratic Party delegates, those who are whether superdelegates or delegates who are elected from the 50 states to represent their constituents at the convention, are going to have to come together and officially nominate Kamala Harris or somebody else as the next nominee. But don't forget, these are all individuals who won their respective elections in their respective states supporting Joe Biden. And so Joe Biden now has thrown his support behind Kamala Harris. And so likely they will do the same. One thing that has come up many times in American media covering this is that just the legal logistics, if you will. Kamala Harris is already on Joe Biden's ticket. Now that Joe Biden is stepping aside, she will lead that ticket. That means that campaign infrastructure, the staffers in place on the ground, most importantly, the campaign funds, those accounts, will be under her now. No other candidate or would-be candidate can just simply jump in the race and take care of building that sort of infrastructure overnight the way that she effectively can now that Joe Biden is stepping aside. So she is by far, from just a simple logistical standpoint, a shoe-in for this position. And the question now is going to be, one, making that position official as the head of the ticket, and then to also find a strong vice president for the ticket who can help carry the day in those key swing states.
Christian Hanley, a consultant to Democratic candidates and an analyst. Excuse me. Thank you so much for your insights and joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.